Hello, Monique. Thank you so much for joining the internal communications spotlight series that I run on my blog and YouTube channel. And I'm delighted to have you on my show to speak about AI in internal comms. It's a fascinating topic and something which is very timely and relevant. So before we get started, it'd be great if you could quickly introduce yourself to our viewers.
Thank you so much. I'm Monique Zytnik. I'm a global employee communications expert based in Berlin. As you can probably tell from my accent, I'm originally from Australia. As HL, eBay, the Lego Foundation, and also the Australian government. I've originally come from a physiotherapy background, which is a whole other story. But I've been about 20 years in marketing communications, starting with public relations and then moving through to B2B marketing, and then fortunately discovering internal comms, which is my favourite part of marketing comms.
And congratulations on the book, and I think that's it's extremely great effort. I wanted to also say that it's very timely. So wanted to understand from you, what's your motivation behind writing this book?
Well, it was about a year and a half ago, and you're like the don't actually finish a book, because it is really, really hard work to distill your ideas down into a clear, coherent story and have that sort of robustness to it, and also have the depth. An article. It's also really expensive. A lot of people don't realise I've got a publisher. I'm very fortunate, but there are still. But it was, what inspired me was really three things that came together, and then it sort of culminated and I made the commitment. So one is that our communication models are not sufficient, or weren't sufficient at the time. We're at the start of the fourth industrial revolution, which is AI, blockchain, and the metaverse, which are changing the way that we do business. And our communication models weren't accommodating for that. So there was a body of knowledge that needed to be shared. There's also that constant tension of us as internal communication professionals wanting a seat at the table, but our leaders not understanding the basics of internal communication strategy. And this is why I decided to write the first internal communication business book for leaders. It's also been so well received by communication professionals, but it's really is from the communication professional to their leader, maybe head of HR, head of IT, to help them understand how to make good decisions around internal comms when communicating at scale. And then the third thing is, I don't like business books. There are only a couple that I really enjoy reading, and one of them was Leading Lines by Australian author Lucinda Holdsworth. About speech engaging, so filled with case studies and stories and insights that it inspired me to write something that was a little bit different, not too dense, not too long, and very consumable. So all of these things came, and I'm pleased with the results. Australian with a hot release last week, #1 hot release last week, and also Australian bestseller last week, and American new release the week before, I believe.
That's great milestones to achieve. So based on your experience, why do you think AI is so important for internal comms?
It's not just important for internal comms, it's important for business generally. As I mentioned, we're at the start of the fourth industrial revolution. It is impacting the way business is done, even from new manufacturing of new plastics and things that have been discovered through using AI. So it's impacting across the board, and it changes the way that you do things. And it would be silly of us not to get on board and take advantage of being able to do certain tasks quicker, get greater insights with data analysis and a range of things. At the moment, we're focused in internal comms and content production. So a recent Gartner research from March looked at global communication professional leaders from around the world, and 94% of them said content investing that together, and Sora, the OpenAI video products, going to be released soon. We've already got different video products that are being released, but I think there's a whole range of other applications of AI that we should be looking at right now, including that sort of data analysis, such as sentiment analysis, language translation. Only a few people that hopefully more, have twigged on to products such as offering more inclusion for people to read things in their preferred language. And there's also some really, when we talk about internal communication, we talk about channels and we talk about sending content. If we take a content point of view, imagine being able to receive content in your preferred format. And this is what I was talking at the IABC World Conference about with Frank Wolf, co-founder of Staffbase, and also Kevin Hanlahan, who's from Halo. We had this great discussion. It gives the option of an individual receiving content in their preferred format. So if you prefer to receive things in a written summarized format, opt in to get most of your content in the format. Or if you prefer everything audio, then that would also be. The sky's the limit in terms of the impact that AI and all the different sorts of AI can have on internal communication and how we communicate with people across our business in the most effective way.
And we keep hearing of the number of risks which are there with using AI. So what are some of the risks and challenges that you foresee?
So if we look at the risks from different viewpoints, I think that's really helpful. So if we start looking outwards, the speed of technology is incredible, and we don't have those guardrails in place. It is up to the organisations at this point in time to put many of the guardrails in themselves. So in Europe, the EU Act, or AI, sorry, in Europe, the EU AI Act, a bit of a tongue twister there, has been implemented. So it's been voted on, it's been put in place 13th of March this year. It's been gazetted, so it's actually in action. It's designed to prevent impingement on human rights and also provide more transparency. So this is just a start, but it's really Europe. A lot of people don't even know about it. There's and beginning of the guide, a lot of these technologies that the law is protecting us against already exist. Then this raises a lot of questions that, again, is thinking and at the moment we really need to be doing this. So the law says that we need to disclose that content was generated by AI. But as an internal communications professional, what does that mean for you in your organisation? Does that mean that you need to disclose that your can AI or draft AI? What about your images that you might, those fun images that you might create using DALL-E for your Adobe, which is quite a commonly enterprise approved product? Are you going to disclose that, or how are you going to tackle this? And there's also, if you've got your own proprietary AI, have that now, you actually need to disclose the copyrighted data that is being used for training for these products. So there's a whole lot of risks that I see ahead, not only from externally developing, so the risks from within the company in terms of compliance. Then I know this is a bit of a long answer, but I think it's really, really important to look at what it also means as an internal communications profession, because there are risks, and we're already seeing this in Europe, where people in marketing and HR have had their jobs cut. There's the presumption from, say, we as communication professionals can do our job faster, or that we might not be needed because of AI. And this is a bit of a fallacy in terms of our role in the organisation and the need. I think there's a greater need than ever for our skills. But again, we've got to manage those perceptions, and this is what we excel in, but we're not stopping and thinking about it and actively doing it for ourselves. Then the last thing I just wanted to really quickly touch on is we also need to look at the acceptance from the organisation in terms of what and how we do our work. For example, a recent Institute of Internal Comms Index report showed that a third of employees would not trust a message from their CEO that was completed with AI. So again, there's a risk in us not actively thinking about how we're going about positioning our department and what we do, and managing the expectations of the employees around us, not just the managers. UK-based research of 4,000 workers that were surveyed. So lots of things to think about and lots of risks. But again, if we're deliberate and we plan ahead and we do a proper analysis, we can identify these risks and also put in plans and strategies to mitigate the risks and the impact on our profession and the people around us.
That's a great segue also into what we want to talk about next, in terms of what can internal communicators do better to adopt AI, because I know most of it is still stuck at the content production stage, but how can they think of other ways of adopting AI?
So I've got a very simple model in my book, which basically you start with yourself and you look at how your job could be easier, and then you work from there with the team, then the stakeholders, and then more broadly. So it's really important to go through this process, not only yourself, but with the support of your comms team and internal comms team and comms team more broadly. So I've worked with organisations such as DHL and Takeda, global pharmaceutical company, to bring together people for these important discussions, because it's through comparing experiences and comparing your notes and going on the journey together that you can prevent people from being left behind. Because the thing about AI and the different sorts of AI is that it's very fearful for people. Fear is the biggest barrier that I see at the moment, because it's a new technology in some ways. It's something that people have to learn to do differently, and you can't just dump it on their lap and expect them to get on with it. Everyone's busy as well. So it's remembering that people perhaps aren't making the time because they've got other more pressing, urgent priorities to deliver in their really, really fast-paced internal comms job. And we also, in throughout this process, we also need to be thinking, okay, we're learning these new skills, but not just AI, like how are we positioning our internal comms team and what additional skills do we need as we transition to this new place in the organisation? And that's consulting skills and being able to ask the hard questions and moving from trusted advisor to business partner.
I heard you say fear is one of the barriers which prevent internal communicators. So what else prevents internal communicators from, adopting AI a lot more than currently?
I think a lot of people have the idea that they can only use what they're allowed to use in their organisation. And it's because you're only allowed to use one or two tools now, means that you upskill yourself outside of work. Like for your own LinkedIn posts or whatever you're doing, you can use these outside of work tools as well to get yourself up to speed. Then there's also people forgetting that the IT department experts and know inside out. So it's up to us to identify what we need and have those conversations with the IT department and say, well, this would actually really help us, or this is the problem that we're trying to solve, and work together to get that solution. Sitting back and being informed as to what we're permitted to use. They're handling IT for the entire organisation, and they're dealing with the needs of the legal department and the needs of the customer service, and to us to be proactive.
And so what, according to you, should leaders do more to, be ahead of the curve? Because I know a lot of leaders are still struggling with this entire new world, new ways of working with AI. So what do you think they should do?
Well, this is the EACD, which is the European in end of May, and in a room of 70 very senior leaders from very prominent brands, there was about 5 who said that they actively had a program in place for AI adoption of some sort, or an AI project, like an actual project that was tackling this. That's frightening. I was at the IOBC World Conference at the end of June, and there was one in a room of 70 of internal communication experts who were actively, again, working on these type of projects. To stay ahead of the curve, you need to be thinking about it now. I'm really, really happy to talk with you. I've been running workshops with the team, look at only getting on board and helping that sort of initial team transition to sort of moving from play to productive, but also rethinking how you do internal communications. Where is your internal communications and communications team placed in the organisation? Value add is no longer getting that news, like drafting and writing that news article. I'm sorry, that's a low value, now super low value task. Writing those all staff emails, that's a low value task. There is, however, a strategy piece in that, positioning it in campaign and making sure that all of the content makes sense and that it's streamlined and that you're not bombarding staff with too many emails. So it's rethinking all of those things and also identifying those skills for the future that I mentioned. So when you look at your team and the value that your team gives, what skills are missing? Sure, you might need to upskill your team on prompt engineering, but you're also going to need to upskill them on those consultancy skills. If we're going to position our people as the strategic part of direct reports as a communication leader, our direct reports are going to have to be comfortable with having those challenging conversations with leaders to say, that's nice, I'm glad you want to do a video, but nobody's going to watch it. Let's now want to do the that you want to communicate, and let's explore the best way to do that. So I'm still seeing a lot of and hearing from a lot of communication people, I start to ask the question, difficult questions and asking them in the right way and probing and coaching our leaders to be getting the results that we need for our people in our organisation.
Fantastic. As we wrap up, Monique, just wanted to ask you, how can people access your wonderful book, and how do they get their hands on it?
It's available on Amazon, every single Amazon store. It's the easiest way to get hold of it. But if you're not an Amazon fan, I completely understand. My mum's friend in Sydney went to her local bookstore and asked them to order it for her. It's Barnes & Noble. I've got a publisher in the US, also a distributor in the whole European region. So Google, and very easily available.
Thank you again, Monique, for coming on the show and sharing your perspectives on AI and internal comms. Is very, very valuable, and I'm sure it'll be well received by our viewers.
And my key takeaway here is, number one, we need to be upskilling our leaders in understanding what being strategic with internal communication is. And number two is, don't wait. To stop and think about, where is your team positioned and what skills do they need? And if you're feeling stuck, please reach out, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm really happy to chat and give you some tips or discuss whatever challenges you might be having. But the time is now, because technology adoption does take time.
Again, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.